Now, for our very special grand finale, a guest that we have been waiting to speak to, and I know all of you have been waiting to speak to eagerly. Hillary Rodham Clinton is joining us from the United States of America. And ma'am, you should know that this conversation is going to be heard by thousands of young women, in particular in Jaipur, but it's also going to be followed by millions of women and men across India and across the world. So thank you for making the time. I know you were in India recently, and you came to commemorate and offer your tributes to the memory of Ela Bhatt, the founder of Seva, and a woman who has inspired you personally. I think a lot of us would want to know, what was it about Ela that really resonated with you, that stayed with you for so many years?
Well, thank you, Mark. And I'm so happy to be talking with you and send greetings to the thousands and millions of people who follow all the great things you do in the media. You know, Ela Bhatt was an inspiration to me because she took her privilege, her education, and turned it into activism and commitment on behalf of other women. I really admire that. She could have had a very nice life, a life of, interesting professional challenges, obviously, personal growth and other opportunities with her family. But she did all of that in addition to becoming an advocate for poor women who work so hard. And she started the Self-Employed Women's Association, SEWA, 50 years ago, as a way of trying to empower women who were in the informal economy, the unorganized sector of very hard work, so that they would have a better chance to send their own children to school, to maybe get a better house for their family, to have more opportunities themselves. I am someone who believes that the highest form of service that we can perform is helping to lift up other people so that they can live their best lives. And Ela Bhatt did that for 50 years, and she became a friend of mine, and I was very honored to go back and to celebrate the 50th anniversary in her memory with the current leadership and members of SEWA.
That's wonderful. And here at We the Women, the festival that we think is about opening doors, that's been the conversation, in fact, all day long. How do women open doors for other women? But let me ask you this. You are easily among the most powerful women. Why only women? You're amongst the most powerful people in the world. Women are often apologetic about seeking and pursuing power. And when they have it, they're often defensive about it. What does power mean to you?
That's a very good observation, let me start by saying, because you're absolutely right. And for too long, women have been apologetic about seeking and then using power. I don't agree with every woman and the way she uses power, I will be quick to say, but I think it's important for all of us, particularly young women, to realize that power is power over yourself, having your autonomy, having your own identity, commanding and expecting respect from those in your family, your community, your business, wherever you are. And power is also that intangible quality of trying to bring people together, whether it's in a non-governmental organization, a business, or the government, to achieve goals. And in my case, I hope that women use our power to achieve goals to help others. But many people who achieve power in whatever setting quit after achieving it, because it is hard work. You run through a lot of hurdles, you overcome barriers. You've experienced that in your own professional life. It's difficult to be a woman in the public arena. And just getting there is in and of itself an accomplishment. But I hope that's not where it ends. Instead, use what you've learned, use your experiences, use your connections to try to network in ways that will lift others up, the way you're doing with the We the Women conference.
Thank you for that. And I know the festival team will be very encouraged to hear those words of support. But Madam Secretary, let me ask you this. With all of your enormous success, life hasn't always been easy for you, as you just mentioned. It isn't easy. Once you get the power, it's not like your battle ends. You yourself have been constantly put under the microscope. There's been relentless public scrutiny. You've been trolled viciously, as so many of us are on social media platforms. And we can chuckle about it today, but we didn't always find it funny. No. I want to understand, when you read those horrible things about yourself, or you did you feel sad, angry, vulnerable? What did it take you to get to this point where you can laugh about it?
It's a very important question, Barka, because women in the public arena have always, historically, going back as far as we know, been subjected to criticism and second guessing. But social media has made it so much worse. The misogyny and sexism, the vitriolic, personal, vicious attacks that are an everyday presence on social media have taken it to another level. So I think two things. One, you have to get used to being criticized if you're in the public sphere. That doesn't mean you like it, but you have to grow thick skin. As one of my favorite Americans, Eleanor Roosevelt, once said, that women in the public arena need to grow skin as thick as the hide of a rhinoceros. And
that's a great line. I'm sorry, I'm jumping in. Do you have a skin as thick as the hide of a rhinoceros?
I do. I have to moisturize it all the time. So you do have to just accept the fact that, look, it's going to happen, and you can't be knocked down and overwhelmed by it. But the second thing is, so much of what is said is false. If your critics say something which is true, yeah, you can sometimes learn something. I have had to learn to take criticism seriously, but not personally. And by that, I mean, if you're criticized for a policy you are advocating or a process that you are trying to promote, maybe you can learn something from it. But when it's not serious, when it's only personal, when it's meant to keep you in bed with the covers over your head, you just have to push it away. And developing a good sense of perspective and a sense of humor does help you to do that.
I mean, I remember you once told me that it irritates so many people that you just keep showing up. And if women just kept showing up and laughing, and the louder we laugh, the more it rankles them, right?
Yeah, I know. It confounds them completely, which gives me a lot of joy.
Good for you. But let me ask you this. I was just looking at a Rolling Stone headline, and it said, it's 2023 and we're still discussing Hillary Clinton's emails. I bring this up. I bring this up because the double standard by which women, successful women, independent-minded women are scrutinized is abhorrent. You have been roasted over the coals for those emails, while a man like Donald Trump thinks he can get away with egregious crimes. That's got to make you mad.
Well, it makes me mad, but I have to say the good news is, they've been after me for so many years and never, ever found anything that, they could pin on me. I mean, it's been kind of a kind of running serial, if you will. Let's get her for this. Let's get her for that. And, they don't, which infuriates them. So, yes, it is 2023. I think it's a perverse form of flattery that they remain somewhat threatened by me and what I stand for and my resilience in the face of their, attempts to drag me down. So again, it's part of the strategy of the sort of misogynistic extreme right, especially in our country, but more globally. Think about how they go after women. They go after women by trying to accuse you of self-dealing or corruption or, some other wrongdoing, they can't take you on your ideas. I happen to believe that, women deserve full equality, that women deserve to have power and exercise it. They can't take you off on that. So they go after you personally. And it is just part of the political background noise these days. And you just have to know it's not true. At the end of the day, all these silly and unfair accusations, false accusations they made about me with my email. There was not one, piece of paper marked classified on my email, contrary to, some people we could name. So it all turns out to be just smoke and mirrors, but it does damage you. The reason why they keep doing it, Barca, is if you throw enough dirt on someone, even if that person can wipe it off and say it doesn't belong, it doesn't apply to me, it did not happen, people remember the dirt being thrown. And the negative stories, even if somebody says, but I agree with her, I like her, the negative stories stay in the back of their head. So there's a method to this political tactic, which is destroy your enemies. If you can't destroy them with the truth, destroy them by accusing them of all kinds of false things, because enough people will be worried by it or even believe it.
Absolutely. I think that's accurately said, the fake news epidemic that's used basically to weaponize misogyny. But talking about misogyny, you have dealt with, negotiated, supped with some of the most powerful men and women in the world. Who, and if I can ask a diplomatic question, who has been the most sexist of them?
The most what?
The most sexist or misogynistic leader you've ever dealt with?
Well, there have been some leaders whose names nobody would know, but Putin is a straight out misogynist and what we call a mansplainer, someone who tries to dominate and intimidate women. There's a famous story when he was meeting with Angela Merkel, Chancellor of Germany. He knew that she was afraid of dogs. And so he brought to the meeting a great big dog. I mean, it's that kind of contempt and nastiness that I saw, from him in my dealings with him. I had some other funny experiences. I remember being in Myanmar, meeting with what was then a civilian government. They had been military leaders who became civilians for a period of time. And I went into the meeting and there was, several of the male leaders and a group of young women sitting at the table. And the, person I was meeting with, the foreign minister, said, well, we understand that you want to promote women. So we brought a bunch of our young women to sit in on it, So there have been some sort of funny things. Or I landed in Bulgaria after a long flight, and I went to the meeting with the then prime minister, and I had longer hair, and I pulled it kind of back in a ponytail. And he sat there staring at me, Barca, before the meeting started. And I thought, wow, I'm looking around, what's going on? And so I finally said, Prime Minister, is there something wrong? Are we waiting to start the meeting? He goes, no, I was told if you had your hair pulled back, you weren't in a good mood.
Oh, my God.
He's been traveling so long, I couldn't wash it. So there's the funny side of it, as well as the, very intimidating efforts.
How did you deal with Putin? I mean, what's the one thing you'll always remember about him and never forget?
Well, apparently I dealt with him too well, because he did everything he could to defeat me in 2016.
Correct.
I stood up to him. I countered some of his bluster and rhetoric, and apparently he wasn't very fond of that.
That is called the art of understatement, what you just said. Okay, I've got a couple of minutes left with you. So let me ask you this. In India, we are befuddled about the fight over abortion, what the Supreme Court has done, and the fight that all of you are having to wage just for basic reproductive autonomy. Do you see any hope at all in that fight, or do you think it's a lost cause?
No, I don't think it's a lost cause, because I think reality has a way of eventually overcoming ideology. And in this case, what's going to happen in our country is beginning to happen, where women with wanted pregnancies who have some problem, a fetal abnormality is discovered, some other issue like, maybe diabetes or an ectopic pregnancy, all the things that can go wrong in a wanted pregnancy are leading to women being denied health care, women having to leave the states they're living in to have life-saving surgery. So I think eventually the ideologues who have drawn these very definite lines that try to restrict women's autonomy will be pushed back. But I don't know how long that will take, Barca. I worry for all of the women and girls whose lives are at risk. And, my attitude toward those on the other side of this issue is, look, if you care so much about this issue, then let's have access to safe, affordable contraceptives universally available. Let's do better on sex education so young girls know what to expect. Let's really enforce the laws against rape and incest and other horrible violations. And let's try to do everything we can to, limit the number of people who would seek an abortion. Let's have quality, affordable childcare so that women feel they can afford their children. Let's have paid family leave so women can take care of their children. I mean, if they were really concerned about women, that is what they would be doing. But they are using women to make ideological and religious points that strip women of their autonomy. And when governments interfere in this most private and intimate part of life, we saw what happened in China, where they had a one-child policy and they had forced abortions. Now they are desperate to have more children, and they have a big, problem that they're facing demographically. Or in Romania, under the old communist regime, when they tried to force women to have children, women were having children they couldn't afford, they couldn't keep, the children were being put into orphanages. Government has no business in these kinds of decisions.
Talking about, the attitudes of people and taking away the rights of women, your daughter and you, Chelsea, and you have this very, very riveting series, Gutsy, where you meet many different gutsy women. And I have to ask you, in recent times, who has left a deep mark on you? Somebody that stays with you, somebody that you've been moved by or influenced by or impressed by?
Well, that's a wonderful question, and I could talk to you for many more hours than we have available. And I hope that all of your audience will look at the series Gutsy on Apple TV Plus, because we do highlight some incredible women. Well, I'll just give you one example. I literally just left being with a woman named Alice Chun. Alice Chun is a scientist. She's a materials engineer. She invented a collapsible solar light. And with that, she is taking it to disaster zones. And she just got back from Ukraine, because with all the terrible bombing from the Russians, the lights are off in hospitals, and people can't take care of pregnant women or wounded soldiers or children with problems. So she brought, a couple thousand lights to Ukraine so that they could literally do surgery, and also to give the lights to children so they wouldn't be afraid in the dark. It's people like that who inspire me, who are successful in their own right, but then decide they want to keep giving because they want to help others have their own, if you will, light to live by.
Extraordinary, and I hope many more people do watch the series. Before we let you go, you ran for president, and there were many reasons you lost: disinformation, fake news, Trump, and the polarized, divided America, Putin. But there was also just plain old-fashioned misogyny. When do you think America will be ready for a woman in the White House?
Well, obviously, I hope it happens in my lifetime. I don't know how many more years I am given to live, but I would like it to happen then. But I don't want it to be just any woman, Bark. I do want it to be a woman who believes in lifting everybody else up. It's absolutely true. There is a deep-seated misogyny, and it's from women, not just men. Women who don't think other women should seek or hold the highest position in our country's government. And we just have to keep chipping away at it. You know, when I ran, I was the only one running on the Democratic side. I was the only woman who's ever won a primary, the only woman nominated, the only woman who's ever won the popular vote. But I want to be not the last woman. I want others to come behind me. So it's not easy. I know how hard it is, but I'm hoping that we will see that happen.
Well, Madam Secretary, let me say this to you from the heart. President or not, you are admired by millions of us around the globe, especially here in India. You have a massive following, and we, have to say thank you for inspiring so many of us with your sheer fortitude, resilience, strength, charisma, dynamism, and above all, sense of humor. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Barka. Take care of yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care.